Two things I ask of you, don't deny them to me before I die. Keep falsehood and deceitful words far from me. Give me neither poverty nor wealth. Feed me with the food I need. Otherwise I may have too much and deny you, saying, "Who is the Lord?" Or I might have nothing and steal, profaning the name of my God. My focus is on that first portion there, which is verses 7 through 8. Two things I ask of you, don't deny them to me before I die. Keep falsehood and deceitful words far from me. Give me neither poverty nor wealth. Feed me with the food I need. This cryptic meditation is a Hebrew mashal, which you can find near the end of the book of Proverbs in an English Bible. I was recently struck by how the meditation uses the literary technique of paradox to subvert the expectation of the reader. So these two things that he's about to announce are things that he begs to receive before I die. He's asking that he might receive by a requested deadline. It's his deathbed request while he's still young. So we expect the next thing he says to be some kind of lifelong desire that Agur has been and will be longing for. And then finally, if his ardent request is granted, then finally it'll be fulfilled at some point before it's too late, before he dies. But the poem subverts expectations when he actually states his twofold request, or you could look at it as a set of two requests with two parts each, so four, and the cadence is like a threefold request. But anyway, when he actually states it, every line has a kind of present continuous flavor. And I'm not talking about the Hebrew tense because I don't know Hebrew, but I'm talking about the general sense of it. He basically says his request is, keep these certain things continually from me, and then these other things, don't be giving me these other things, and then be continuing providing these other things. So rather than listing a punctiliar, at one single point gift, instead he's asking to get, instead of this, punctiliar gift that he wants to get one time before he meets that deadline of death. Instead, he flips expectations and asks to be given the one greatest longing of all, contentedness. So this is the ardent desire that he begs to receive before he dies, a continual stream of contented gladness, without the perilous and traitorous waves of desire, deceit, craving, greed, and manipulation. It's as though he says, fulfill my agonizing desire before I expire and lose my chance. Provide for me this longing, continuous perpetual rest in the gladness of what I have, so that I may always contentedly thank you, God, for what you provide. I wonder if it's intentional that the image Agur paints seems to, in some ways, mirror certain events portrayed in Genesis. The patriarch Isaac, if you remember, at that before I die moment, he received falsehood and deceitful words from his son, resulting in anguish and strife among the family during the father's last days. A generation later, the elderly patriarch Jacob refused to accept comfort while grieving and said he would go down to Sheol mourning, all because of, unknown to him, all because of the falsehood and deceitful words of his sons. In both cases, some form of greed drove the sons to spoil the sunset years of their father, so that the father's natural desire for peaceful final days was knocked off in favor of the corrupt desires of his offspring. In contrast to that, this cryptic meditative prayer of Agur, this Hebrew mashal, is about being granted by God to be able to live a life controlled by the impulse of the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, who, like Agur, preferred the secret, as he called it, the secret that divine wisdom provides, and that's Philippians 4 I'm referring to. It's fitting that the very thing that Paul calls a secret is here conveyed by Agur through a riddle that turns on the axis of a paradox and becomes richer with meditation, because the mysteries of divine wisdom are not merely cognitive. They flatten if they're compressed into the cheapness of merely methodical cognition. Well, anyway, those are some reflections I had on on one small portion of the sayings of Agur, some reflections on what it can mean to cherish contentment and the joy of peace with others, instead of centering yourself on the desires that captivate so much. Proverbs chapter 30, verses 7 through 8 is where you can find the passage I'm referring to.